if you're overweight, maybe feeling kind of sluggish, energy's not great, and just overall you don't feel like you're healthy and well, then I have a quick 3-part framework that is biblical. It's based on what we see in scripture, that is something that will probably help you. In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus is teaching the Sermon on the Mount. You're probably already saying, what does Matthew 7 have to do with nutrition or health or wellness? Well, I'm just telling you how to remember this 3-step framework. So in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus is finishing up the Sermon on the Mount, and he begins to talk about how there's a broad path that leads to destruction, and that there's a narrow gate that you need to enter in to lead to life. And it really helps me to remember this simple framework for health and wellness that is based on biblical principles. One of the things that Jesus says there in Matthew 7 is that there are many people that go that pathway that leads to destruction, but there are few, F-E-W, that go on that pathway that leads to life. And we see that that's true really in so many different realms. So it's certainly true in the spiritual realm. That is what he's talking about there. So I'm not here to say that Jesus was talking about health and nutrition or wellness there, but that concept that there are few people that actually do those things that lead to life, even from a physical perspective, is also true. And so that's the thing that can help me remember these 3 ideas, that really, if you do these things, it really will help your health and wellness. And that's to remember the word few, F-E-W. So the 3 things are fast weekly, eat biblically, and walk daily. So I'm doing one of them right now. I'm walking. And I'm walking backwards right now, and I'm gonna walk forward now, I think. So if you do those 3 things, first of all 3 of those things are in the Bible: fasting, eating, and walking. And so I want to talk a little bit about the word that I put along with them, because the Bible, by the way, does not say you need to fast every week. In fact, when you look in Luke chapter 18 and you have this Pharisee that's praying to God and saying, I fast twice a week, and he stands condemned because he is arrogant and he is going before God bragging about what he does. Now, the thing about the Pharisees, it wasn't wrong to fast twice a week. And I'm not saying fast twice a week in this case. I'm saying fast weekly. And what do I mean by fasting? To fast is to go without food for a period of time. So when we're thinking about fasting, most people probably eat 2 to 3 meals a day. What I'm saying here is that if you'll take once a week, it could be twice or more than that, but I'm saying once a week, take that period of time, whatever the longest time is between your last meal or between 2 meals, because it might vary for you. So for many people, it might be your last meal is at 8 o'clock in the evening and your first meal is 8 o'clock in the morning. What I'm saying is, once a week, that 12-hour period, which is the longest period you go between meals usually, take that 12-hour period and extend it to maybe 16, maybe 18. So once a week, do that. Now, there are all kinds of benefits to this. The primary benefit, I would say, is the spiritual benefit, that you are telling your flesh what to do. So often your body says, I want food and I want it right now. And you're constantly at the mercy of what your body wants. And when you do that on a physical level, it also manifests spiritually, where you kind of say, I want to watch this or I want to do that. And sometimes these things are not just things that would gratify my flesh, but they're sinful beyond just gratifying my flesh. And so the primary benefit is that you have a better attitude towards food when you do this. So fast weekly, whatever that longest period of time is, maybe it's 12 hours, maybe it's 14 hours, whatever it is, make it longer, 1 day a week. And if you do that, it's going to be helpful for you. You're going to have a better attitude toward food. The next thing is eat biblically. You say, okay, Jared, what do you mean by eating biblically? I'm saying just eat foods that are God's foods. We know that God made plants and vegetables. That's generally what people look at, fruits and vegetables, and say, that's what it means to eat biblically. God also made animals. And when Noah came off of the ark, meat was given to people to eat. And that's the part that I often focus on, where most of my meals are just meat. Sometimes with plants, there are insecticides and pesticides that are sprayed on them that is not from God. And so it's often very difficult, unless you're getting something that's organic, to be able to have something that's really God's food. And there are issues with meat at times as well, but eat God's foods. For me, that's primarily meat. At times you might get some honey or some. My dad I had some dates this past weekend. My dad's like, we found these dates, and those are things that you see in the scripture. Figs, olive oil. There are a lot of things like that. If you haven't come across the book, The Biblio Diet, by Dr. Josh Axe and Dr. Josh Axe and Rubin. I can't remember his first name. I'm blanking on his name. He wrote Jordan Rubin. He wrote the Maker's Diet. That book talks a lot about what it would look like to eat biblically. So that's something that I've been working a lot more on. Eating God's foods. A Twinkie is not God's food. Doritos are not God's food. Honey buns are not God's food. They taste really good. Ice cream is not something that God made. So when we think about that, let's eat biblically. Let's eat God's foods. The last thing is walking. Again, we're doing that right now. Let's do a little backward walking here. So walking we see throughout scripture. And I got my toe sneakers on. I'm not going to show them to you this time, but I got my toe sneakers on. I like to walk in those, and it does give me a greater appreciation for Jesus and the disciples who would walk these long distances and have sandals on. It makes sense that they would need to wash their feet all the time. When I come out of these toe sneakers, sometimes there's rocks in my shoes and all of that kind of thing. But walking every day, I'm not going to give you a step count. Many people say 10,000 steps a day is good, but you have to do the math on that. For me, if I get up in the morning and I'm walking at a pretty brisk pace, I can probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 6,000 steps in an hour. My morning walk is usually about an hour, sometimes longer. So in order for me to get 10,000 steps in my walks that are just constant walking, it would take me probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 hours a day to do that. And I can't always do that. But wherever you are, if you have a step counter or something like that, I don't use one, but figure out what you could do to get more steps in and actually just go out just for the purpose of walking. And I think what you'll see is that when you implement that, you notice I'm not saying anything about going to the gym. I'm not saying go for a run. I'm saying go for a walk. And my parents have been doing this, and they actually are walking longer and longer distances. So when I go to their house in Springfield, Tennessee, I get up in the mornings and I walk all the way from their house. There's a Kroger. I go past that into a neighborhood near there. It takes me about 30 minutes to get there, and so then it's about an hour to get there and back. And eventually my dad and my mom are going to be able to do that too, because they've just been little by little going longer and longer in their neighborhood. And it helps you on all these different levels. Your breathing gets better. Your nasal, you don't have as much sinus drainage and all of this kind of stuff. All right, I guess we can go forward a little bit more. So those are the three things. I wanted today to just be a quicker video because I'll be talking more about these three pillars of biblical health as we go through this channel. So yes, I talk a lot about carnivore because carnivore is a way to eat biblically. When you think about the priests from the Old Testament, a lot of times they were eating all this meat that was being brought, and so they ate a lot of meat. And so yes, they ate bread and they ate some other things too, but the bread they ate was not our bread from today. So in many cases, unless we're eating something much closer to what they ate in terms of bread, we probably need to leave it alone. But those three things: fast weekly, eat biblically, and walk daily. If you haven't done all three, put in the comments below, are you doing these? And if you are doing these, how's it going? I can assure you that it's going pretty well for you if you're doing these three things. If you're fasting every week, if you're eating God's foods, and if you're walking daily, I'm sure you're in pretty good shape. So comment below if you're doing that. If you're not doing all three, and you want to talk more about, want us to talk more about what does it look like, for example, fasting, or what does it look like to eat biblically? How does carnivore fit into all that? Walking daily. How do you get your steps in if maybe you just can't walk very well right now? There are ways for you to gradually get that back up. And so when we do things God's way, we get these results because he's the one that made the human body. It wasn't evolution. It wasn't this, that our bodies just kind of morphed into this over time because we were some kind of glorified monkeys. If we want to talk about that sometimes on this channel, we should as well, probably. But just want to go over that 3-part framework. There are few people that will do this. And that's the thing. If more people did this, then our health outcomes would be much better. If we just did things the way we see them in Scripture. People in Scripture have fasted, eaten God's way, and walked. You just see it throughout the Bible. And so we should do that as well.